こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材はリーズユナイテッドの田中碧に関する動画です。リーズユナイテッドは33試合を消化し、チャンピオンシップでトップに立ち、2位のシェフィールドユナイテッドとは勝ち点2差。自動昇格圏外の3位のバーンリーとは1試合消化が少ない状況で勝ち点4差と、プレミアリーグ昇格に非常に近づいている状況です。今回はバーンリーファンであるジャコブ・ホーフォールチャンネルで、リーズユナイテッドについての分析動画をお届けします。リーズの特徴的で攻撃的な戦術と、それを中盤でタクトを振る田中碧をお気に入りの選手と言いつつ絶賛しています。攻撃的であるため、プレミアリーグに上がった時にどれだけ通用するのか、というのを今から不安に感じることもありますが、チャンピオンシップでは間違いなくトップのチームであり、他チームのファンも称賛していますので、実際にどのように分析しているのか、チェックしてみましょう。
Last summer, Leeds United lost a lot of big players, but despite that, they somehow managed to get even better this season and are absolutely dominating the English second tier. And that is all down to Daniel Farke's new tactics, which are allowing Leeds to score more goals per 90 this season, have more of the ball than they did last season, pin teams in way more often and with a way higher success rate, and create way more chances than last season. So, how's the German gaffer doing it? Well, today we're going to get into the new setup at Leeds. We're going to also look at some of the players that are absolutely cooking this season. And at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you how many points I think that Leeds will accumulate come the end of the season. To start things off, I think it's right if we look at the kind of players that Leeds lost in the summer, because they were some really talented footballers who could have had a lot to say this season. Losing both Jorginho Rutter and Crescencio Somerville could have been an absolute game changer for this season, especially because a lot of what Daniel Farke tried to do was to get Rutter on the ball in the half spaces to pull the opposition out and create spaces for Somerville to get in behind. I mean, the French number 10 racked up 15 assists last season whilst only scoring 6 goals, as his main duty was to occupy defenders and create opportunities for his teammates. However, that's completely changed this season. Daniel Farke isn't using his number 9 as a creative outlet. Instead, he's got a brand new role for Brenden Aaronson. I mean, that's shown by the fact he scored more goals already this season than Jorginho Rutter had done by the end of last season. But Aaronson only has 2 assists. So, how have Leeds changed their system to accommodate for losing such a creative force like Rutter while still scoring 0.3 more goals per game this season than they did last season? Well, it all comes down to this. This screenshot right here shows the change that Daniel Farke has made to make Leeds United better. You see how far up Messier is and the fact that he has 2 centre-halves wide to receive the ball to create this gap for Tanaka to step into and offer an out ball. So it's a bit like a 2-2 build-up kind of. But that obviously then leads you to ask, where the hell are the fullbacks? Where's Jaden Vogel and where is Junior Firpo? Well, Vogel is extremely high and wide on the bottom of the screen, and Junior Firpo on the opposite side is also extremely high and wide. It's a really risky way of playing, having your fullbacks pretty much nowhere near the first phase a lot of the time. Sometimes Firpo or Vogel are coming out, but a lot of the time it is having Rodon and then Ampadu or Strauch coming in here as the first initial line and basically playing as a 2 at the back the majority of the time, which is obviously a risk because you've got less bodies there. You kind of, if you lose the ball, you're defending with less bodies. But the majority of elite sides in Europe play with this 2 back line because it allows them to get more bodies in midfield and in the attacking front line. But the most important thing to note from this all about having maybe Tanaka dropping in and having the 2 at the back is actually the fact the fullbacks are pretty much nowhere near that first phase and are getting forced and told to bomb down that line because it's so important across the pitch for Leeds, because it means that the wingers have been given the autonomy to do as they please pretty much. They can come inside into the half spaces, they can hold wide and Firpo or Boga will underlap them, but they have that choice to make. They can do what they want. As we see here, Solomon picks up this half space area as Firpo is basically in the traditional byline winger role. Firpo drags the fullback wide and creates separation between the defence and the midfield as a result. This means Solomon can drift around as he pleases and pick up the ball, which is what he's done all season. Now, that's instantly quite a big change from last season, as a lot of the autonomy was given to the number 10 in Jorginho Rutter because Farke wanted him to drift deep, he wanted him to drift forward, he wanted him to get in the half space, and he just wanted Rutter to do whatever, do what he wanted to do and create things, whilst Somerville and Nonto or James that were playing on the right were basically just allowed to, again, not necessarily do what they want, but prioritise getting in behind and getting in goal-scoring areas, rather than maybe coming a little bit deeper and picking up the ball. But because Aronson's in the number 10 role and he's a little bit more fixed in his positioning, the wingers have a bit more of a free role. As a result of both Junior Firpo and Jaden Bogle being high and wide, the central spaces are more open in the first and second phase, as we discussed when talking about the freedom to come inside that's given to the wingers. But it's not just about the first and second phase, it's obviously always about how you approach the final third. Now, yes, we've established that Aronson isn't used in the same way as Rutter at all, and the team don't necessarily look to create space for Aronson to get on the ball in the first and second phase, but that doesn't mean that they don't try get him on the ball in the final third, and they do look to create opportunities for Aronson to do damage to the opposition when they get into that kind of last phase of the pitch. Now, we've got the tactics board up, and ignore the kind of numberation of all these players, and this one is the only one I want you to focus on, because this right now is Jorginho Rutter, and I want to talk about how the role between him and Aronson has changed, because here, let's say it's Jorginho Rutter, a lot of the time he would drop into these spaces, maybe drop here to support these midfielders and help Leeds get out of the press and burst forward, and he would also come into the half spaces. Let's say the ball's here, if it lets me drag it, the ball's here, it'll come in here, or the ball's there, they can hit him, he can turn under pressure and then look to create for his teammates. But it's completely different now, and Brendan Aronson is seen as more of a box crusher. Now, I know some people might be like, what the hell does that even mean? Well, I'm going to show you. Let's just say that Leeds are trying to break down a 5-4-1 maybe, and a lot of it now is obviously with Bogle being here, Bogle will be up here, Aronson here, let's say that, and we're going to have this back to nice here, Tanaka and maybe Ilya Groove or Joe Rothwell are going to be occupying these central spaces. Pirro's going to be wanting to get in here, and then this is where Aronson becomes really important, because Firpo will do this, maybe Solomon will do that, or you could have it the other way around. It's kind of fluid, as we've already kind of established with Firpo and the wingers, but this man's role becomes really important in breaking down these low block sides, and it's not necessarily like Rutter, it's not a magic pass or a slip through ball, instead it's more about this. You see here, the fullback's going to probably be marking Firpo. The number 4 here is going to be watching him there, going to be really, really watching Solomon. That means that Aronson can come in. You've already got Dan James here, and this guy's going to be stuck here. And then that means because Aronson's bursting into a box, he can't fully track because Tanaka's going to be making this movement here. Rodon and whoever's the other centre-back are going to be high up as well, which gives Bogle this kind of pass into there. He can go back, or he can go into there. So this whole midfield and the whole defence really are in just two minds on what to do, because Aronson a lot of the time will make these darting runs in and crash into the box, goal. Or, if he's not actually the one receiving it, he'll make the dart and run in. Defender might pull away, it leaves someone else, bang. Because his primary role, Aronson, in this position, isn't to create directly, it's to just cause problems in and around the 18-yard box, which either creates a goal for him where he takes minimal touches and buries home, which he is good at, or creates space for his teammates to get goals themselves. On top of that though, I do think you've got to give it to Aronson. As much as a lot of Leeds fans aren't his biggest fan, they don't really rate him in possession, and obviously in terms of an actual footballer in the entertainment side, he is a big drop off on Jorginho Rutter. But off the ball and his kind of work rate and his tenacity, I don't think you can question it in my opinion. He works really, really hard, and he's a big part in what's made this Leeds side more balanced, because he runs and runs, and that's what you need, I think. And obviously on top of that, he creates chances for the other team by using his pace and his physical attributes to just get about. However, before we go deeper into Leeds tactics, I want to look at two really important players, Junior Firpo and Jaden Bogle. I'm going to start things off with Junior Firpo, and if we pull up his heat map from the game against Sunderland, it comes back to this kind of idea of holding that width high and wide, and also having a lot of responsibility with the ball. I mean, how often do you see a fullback take 75 touches in a game? That is absolutely mental, but that's the normal for Firpo. He usually takes 75 odd touches in a game. I think this season, in fact, he's averaged something like 74.27 touches per game. This is just what Leeds' fullbacks' role is. They're two of the biggest players in possession in this whole setup. This season, the Leeds left-back sits in the top 3% of Championship fullbacks for touches in the final third per 90. He's also received more progressive passes per 90 than any other Championship fullback, and is averaging 3.34 shot creating actions per 90. Seen him sit in the top 3% of Championship fullbacks for that stat. When it comes to having Junior Ferber on the pitch, it's like having another winger. He is. He's like having another attacking player on the pitch, whether his positioning, his ability in possession to create things, and just offer a lot on the ball and with his passing range. I mean, he's averaging something like a goal contribution every 2.5 games from left-back, lads. Like, come on. But I feel like, yeah, Firpo is absolutely massive, and he has been, for me, probably the best fullback in the division this season. Moving on though, and onto his kind of fullback partner, because I feel like as much as both fullbacks are high and wide, they're aggressive, they're really good going forward, I think Jayden Bogle plays a huge role in how Leeds operate without the ball. I think that Bogle's physical presence is huge for the Leeds right hand side, and he plays a huge part in pinning teams in. His heat map from the game against Sunderland shows he is up and down that right hand side, really dominating it. Going forward, he's great, he attacks the box, he creates chances, and he has the pace, strength and ability to beat a man with him, averaging 2.78 shot creating actions per 90, 4.72 progressive passes per 90, and he's also sitting in the top 4% of Championship fullbacks for touches in the final third. However, something that this season I feel like has gone a little bit under the radar with Bogle is his defensive progression. He's gone from being pretty sceptical at the back, a few fans not really liking how good he is defensively, to genuinely being a really good defensive asset for Leeds. Things started a little bit slow defensively for Bogle, and I know at Sheffield United he wasn't always the best defender, but as time has progressed this season, he's really stepped up, especially in terms of his pressing. We see here Bogle's made a run wide, Dan James has made that central movement, and Aronson is occupying one of the centre halves to create space in the box. But two Sunderland players have came out to try and limit Bogle's attacking threat, so his cross does get blocked. However, as soon as Lafille regains the ball, Jayden Bogle turns and is on top of him straight away. He uses physical presence to push Lafille back and forces a mistake, which leads to a Leeds United corner, therefore allowing Leeds to maintain the pressure, to maintain Sunderland staying inside their own 18-yard box and pushing for a goal. This high pressing from the usual front six that Leeds do attack with really means it's so hard for teams to get out, because Leeds counter press and get straight back on you, and if you manage to get out of that, or you try play a ball through the lines, Outenacker and whoever partners him are covering the ground to make it really hard for teams to kind of come, sit back and then look to exploit Leeds in transition, because they've got so much space to carry the ball forward, but they've got Outenacker, maybe Joe Rothwell, Ilya Groove, and then Joe Rodon and Bedu Struick to really run at. And all them players are elite Championship footballers. I mean, just to kind of emphasise how hard it is to beat this Leeds press, they've won the ball in the final third more times than any other team in the division, other than Portsmouth. A little bit weird that Portsmouth are there, but we'll ignore it. Yeah, moving on. But I feel like that kind of shows you just how good Leeds are at pinning teams in and regaining that ball and maintaining the kind of bombardment that they put on sides. It's absolutely sensational. But the way in which Leeds press teams isn't just about their out of possession stuff. They push teams back and prevent them from being able to offer much in possession through their very own in possession work. And I know that sounds mental, but just stay with me here, because a lot of what Leeds do with the ball is what forces the opposition to struggle to do much themselves with the ball. You see here that Leeds force Sunderland to have to come so deep because they have 6 players in the Leeds front line. 2 high intensity midfielders, and then both their centre halves are also high up the pitch. I mean, just look at how far forward Rodon is in this clip. The commitment of all these players when Leeds do counter press makes it so hard for teams, and they're forced to go long. And I know Sunderland got a little bit of joy. Wilson Isdor had that moment of magic which took Sunderland into the lead. But a lot of the teams in this division do not have that same joy, and therefore struggle to really do something against Leeds, because they're forced to have to play these long magical balls forward and have their forwards in isolation with Leeds defenders, and it's just a lot to ask of players. However, as much as it asks a lot of the opposition's players, it also asks a lot of the Leeds players, specifically the midfield. You really need to have a switched on midfield that can read the game and intercept the ball and maintain attacks, and also aggressive and physical midfield. And that's where my favourite midfield in the division How Tanaka steps in. Tanaka's reading of the game is incredible, and it's also integral to this high-risk attacking football that Leeds play. If the ball is loose in midfield or the opposition are trying to hit Leeds on the break, Tanaka is almost always there to sweep up the pieces and restart attacks for his side. I mean, this season Tanaka sits in the top 8% of championship midfielders for interceptions per 90, but he also averages 7.51 progressive passes per 90 and is attempting a huge 76 passes per 90 as well. So Tanaka's role isn't just about sweeping up balls on the edge of the box and kind of passing on to someone else a little bit more creative than him. No, he regains the ball and then he looks forward. How can he break this team down? How can he hit them when they're trying to counter-attack Leeds? And that's why he has been absolutely integral to controlling the games. And I also think as much as he does win the ball back and tries to go forward, he reads games well and he can slow the tempo down, or he can have a dig himself, or he knows when to speed it up. He is just incredible as a footballer. But how far do I think Leeds will go? How many points do I think Leeds are going to get? We've kind of talked about the tactics there. We've talked about both the fullbacks. We've talked about Aronson. We've talked a little bit on the wingers. And we've talked about my favourite boy, Al Tanaka. But how else do we look at the rest? Because it's going to be a long season still. I mean, there's still quite a few games to go. Leeds aren't flying clear just yet. But I'm going to say between 95 and 98 points, I think. I believe they're on like 72. And I think 95 to 98 is achievable, I think. And I think that's probably what they're going to do. I think Leeds will win the league with a few games to go. And they really should do, shouldn't they? Unless it's a typical Leeds, then they might not. But I can't see a world that they don't get the title, or at least not get top 2. But Leeds fans, please do me a favour and beat Sheffield United on Monday so that the tricky Clarets can get closer to automatics. I would really appreciate that. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I do actually want to say before we go that a lot of credit goes to the kind of Rodons, the Struicks, Ampadus and Bogles for the defensive work of Leeds. But more credit needs to go to the full team, because the press is what causes that such good defensive setup. Obviously conceding barely any chances, barely any XG, barely any goals. But yeah, before I left, I wanted to say that. But anyways, if you have enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
次は解説です。英語のアクセントは少し独特な感じもしますし、文の区切りがわからないぐらい文章を続けて話していましたので、翻訳する際に少し手間取りました。動画は長めでしたが、編集も大変でしたので、解説パートも長くならないようにしましたが、面白い表現もありましたので、本日の解説をチェックしてみましょ
う。I mean, the French number 10 racked up 15 assists last season.
ラックアップは何かを積み重ねる、獲得するという意味のフレーズで、スポーツの得点、ビジネスの利益、ゲームのスコアなどに使われます。また、借金や損失を増やしてしまうというネガティブな使い方もあり、日常会話だけでなく、ニュース記事やビジネスの場面でも見かける表現です。特に、結果を強調したいときに便利なので、スコアや実績について話すときに使ってみましょう。
I mean, the French number 10 racked up 15 assists last season. To accommodate for losing such a creative force like Rutter.
アコモデートは何かや誰かのニーズに応じたり、適応したりするときに使える単語で、例えば、ホテルや会場が何人まで収容できますと言いたいときに使えます。ビジネスシーンでは、顧客のリクエストに対応するや、スケジュールを調整するといった状況でも使われ、さらに新しい環境や変化に適応するという意味でも使われるなど便利な表現です。
To accommodate for losing such a creative force like Rutter. While still scoring 0.3 more goals per game this season.
ホイルストは何なんする間に、何なんだけれどもという意味のホワイルと同じ意味を持つ単語で特にイギリス英語でよく使われます。何かをしながら別のことをする場面や、二つの対照的な事柄を比べるときに使えます。フォーマルな文書やビジネスメールでも使われますが、アメリカ英語では通常ホワイルが使われるため、特にイギリス英語を学ぶ人は覚えておくと役立ちます。
While still scoring 0.3 more goals per game this season. While still scoring 0.3 more goals per game this season, and are getting forced and told to bomb down that line.
ボムダウンは猛スピードで駆け抜ける、勢いよく突進するという意味のフレーズで、特にサッカーの試合解説で選手がサイドを疾走するといった場面でよく使われ、ウィンガーやサイドバックがスピードを生かして駆け上がるときに使われる表現です。日常会話でも自転車や車で猛スピードで走るといった意味で使われることがあり、 カジュアルな表現なので、スポーツや日常英会話で覚えておくと役立ちます。
Now getting forced and told to bomb down that line. Now getting forced and told to bomb down that line. It's because it means that the wingers have been given the autonomy.
オートノミーは自主性、自立、自治を意味する名詞で、個人が他人に依存せずに意思決定をする場合や、組織や地域が独立して運営される状況で使われます。例えば、職場で社員が自律的に仕事を進める環境を指すときや、ある地域が政府から自治権を得るといった政治的な場面でも使われます。特にビジネスやアカデミックな文脈でよく使われる単語なので、フォーマルな英語を学びたい人には必須の語彙です。
Because it means that the wingers have been given the autonomy. It's because it means that the wingers have been given the autonomy by using his pace and his physical attributes to just get about.
get about は移動する、広まる、活動するという意味のフレーズで、例えば年配の人がまだ元気に歩き回れると言いたいときや噂やニュースが広まると表現する際に使われます。また旅行する、あちこち移動するといった意味でも使われ、特にイギリス英語でよく使われる表現ですが、日常英会話で幅広く使えるので覚えておくと役に立ちます。
By using his pace and his physical attributes to just get about. By using his pace and his physical attributes to just get about. He's gone from being pretty skeptical at the back.
スケプティカルは懐疑的な、疑い深いという意味の形容詞で、何かを完全には信じられない、または疑っているときに使われます。例えば、新しいアイデアや製品に対して本当に効果があるのかと疑問を持つ場面や、誰かの話が本当かどうか疑わしいと感じるときに使えます。ビジネスシーンでは、新しい戦略に懐疑的である。市場の動向を慎重に見ているなどの文脈で使われることが多いので、フォーマルな場面でも役立つ単語です。
He's gone from being pretty skeptical at the back. He's gone from being pretty skeptical at the back and maintaining the kind of bombardment that they put on side.
ボンバードメントは爆撃、攻撃、質問や情報の集中放火という意味の名詞で、戦争や軍事に関連する文脈では激しい爆撃を指しますが、ビジネスや日常会話では広告の反乱、質問攻めといった比喩的な意味で使われることが多いぜ。例えば、企業が消費者に対して大量の広告を送り続ける場合や、誰かがインタビューで質問攻めに遭うといった場面で使えます。ニュース記事やフォーマルな文章でよく見かける単語なので、読解力を高めたい人におすすめです。
Maintaining the kind of bombardment that they put on sides. Maintaining the kind of bombardment that they put on sides. Or he can have a dig himself.
ハブエディグは主にイギリス英語で使われる口語表現で、スポーツの文脈では思い切ってシュートを打つという意味で特にサッカーの試合解説でよく使われます。ディグは一般的に掘るという意味ですが、スラングでは強く打つ、勢いよくやるといった意味を持つことがあり、このニュアンスがサッカーに転用され、ゴールを狙って力強くシュートを打つという意味で使われます。日常会話では皮肉を言う、批判的なコメントをするという意味もあり、誰かをからかったり、冗談めかして批判したりする場面でも使われます。いかがでしたか？典型的なリーズユナイテッドは、どこかでボロが出たり、できることも出来損なうことが多いようで、そういう皮肉を言っている人も多いですが、現状はチャンピオンシップのトップに立ち、試合内容も結果も、かなりプレミアリーグに近いんだろうとも感じます。監督は少しロマンチスト派のようだともレオザさんの話を聞いてても不安になることがありますが、その攻撃的な戦術が少なくともチャンピオンシップで成り立っているのは、田中碧の働きが大きいことなのだろうとも思いますし、リーズファン以外の他チームのファンも田中碧を称賛することしかありません。まだまだ最後まで気が抜けることはないと思いますが、まずはシェフィールドユナイテッドとの天王山がありますので、期待しながら楽しみにしたいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。